kick in,
Yeah.
and we should be live now. There we go. Hey everybody, how's it going? Kanan here, and I'm joined with
Rune Shimatsuji Storm. Hello, everyone. And I am the indie dev from Sweden/Japan. Just released Red Colony 2 for the Switch. I'm mainly making games for Switch at the moment. And yeah, that's who I am.
And this is a AMA, which basically means ask me anything, not me personally. But yep, it's your chance to come in and basically ask any questions you want. I presume about the development or things like that about the actual game.
Yeah.
Or games as it is now, as it's two of them now, haven't you?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna share this stream. So yeah, this is the second game. Red Colony 2, the second game of a three-part series. I'm not sure if I've said that before, but I think I pointed it out here and there that it's going to be 3 games. So this is the second one. Yeah, very, very exciting. And let me just check. There we go.
Yep. That's all done. I do apologize for that. We're just doing the sharing and everything of it. So yeah. So tell us a bit about the actual game then, or games rather.
Yeah, where to begin? Well, these are sort of over the top, very anime inspired games, sort of focusing on story. And I guess you could say the gameplay and mechanics is more like a second thought in these games. And these games are actually these kind of games that I personally wanted to play more of myself. And I really wish that we had more of these sort of short story driven games. They're just a couple of hours long, and I guess that's mainly because I'm too busy nowadays with a little boy in the house and just moved to Sweden from Japan. So yeah, I sort of made these games because I think because I like them. This is what I like to play nowadays, and so I made these games that way. It's very short, story driven, and they are inspired by some of my favorite things, such as Japanese anime and horror games such as Resident Evil and Dino Crisis. Dead Space, all of it. I love horror games, except that I hate them because they're scary. However, when I make the games myself, it's obviously not as scary. They're also inspired by like TV drama. Not that I'm watching any of it myself, but my wife is really into that kind of stuff, and I was sort of surprised when we went to Sweden a couple of years ago for Christmas. She was watching like the Swedish version of, I think it was The Bachelor or something like that. And even though she doesn't understand Swedish at all, she was hooked on it. And I thought, man, that's crazy that these sort of drama shows are so addicting. And I sort of made fun of her for it, but I ended up benching one season of that show. And that's how this whole drama came into the Red Colony games. So I guess it's a mix of all of those things, and also it's a graphic novel. There's a lot of graphic novels in Japan, and I tried to play a couple of them, but you know they're always in Japanese only, never released in the West. So I was sort of bummed out that I wasn't able to enjoy them as much as maybe the Japanese audience could, because my Japanese is not perfect and it would take me ages to read all the stuff. So I thought that would be cool to sort of mix graphic novels into horror and actually have some gameplay, because in graphic novels it's usually no gameplay, it's just text and options.
Yeah.
So all of these things combine, and then boom, you have Red Colony.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've played a fair amount of oh, shit, of graphic novels. Like they kind of class them as games, don't they? But yeah, I agree. I think a fair few of them I've actually said I wish there was like more actual gameplay or something to do within them. And obviously
Yeah,
this gives you that.
yeah. But that's also like the I guess difficult to balance as well. I wonder like what most players think. Personally, I like when you reach a new conversation in Red Colony because the story is usually in the conversations and all that. Except that I have tried to do a lot of environmental storytelling as well. But when you reach the conversation bits, what I'm hoping that people will feel is like kind of like how you would play when you if you ever play like Final Fantasy back in the day, you will reach these cutscenes and it would feel very special because you've been playing for hours and then you run into one of these cutscenes. Now, obviously, Red Colony is much shorter, but
Mm.
at least I was hoping that running into these NPCs here and there would sort of make you feel first safe because there won't be any zombies around, but also like uh, a little bit excited because it's uh, story time, so to speak. But I do know that also like a lot of people who play Red Colony probably don't care about the story bits, maybe, or maybe they're expecting something else when they picked up the game. Maybe they were expecting it to be like more to the action game, which
Yeah.
it kind of is. But I am focusing a lot on the story aspects of it, and it's obviously a quite over the top and somewhat ridiculous story. But so far, it seems like it hit home with a lot of people. They sort of enjoy that. Um, I don't know, silliness, but at the same time, a little bit serious.
It's actually weird. I've noticed that you've started both games with having to like duck underneath a table.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure why. Um, both the levels in both games, I try to introduce as many things as possible. For example, where we're watching now, she's ducking on the table, and that's just
Mm.
like tutorials. Now, I don't like the idea of having tutorials at all. I'm a huge Soul fan, and I like when you get thrown into a game and you have to figure it out on your own. But I was sort of convinced by my publisher to at least have something in there. So the tutorials were very, like sort of last minute things. And that's also why they're not very well explained in the game that you can, for example, break lamps to crawl past an enemy or crawl past an enemy just by going under a table. These things I wanted the player to experience themselves, but it's really hard to know that you can do those things, especially since it's an indie game and with this sort of um, I don't want to call my own game a low quality indie game, but it's it's not like a super high quality game. So I think maybe players don't would never expect that a game like this would have those sort of functions where you can actually break lamps and crawl past an enemy. So in Red Colony 1, there's actually no tutorial on that, I think, that you can break a lamp. But in Red Colony 2, I made sure that there was a tutorial that would sort
No,
of
there
say that.
wasn't. Because I even say in my review that um, that you mention it in the second one, and then I say I don't remember that you could do it in the
Mm.
first one.
Mm.
And yeah, I suppose if you can do it in the first one, but you didn't mention it, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, so that's the and that's because these things were added really last minute, um, because I didn't want them to be in the game at all. But uh, this kind of things happen. But for people who do find out, that it's fun for them at least. And I did release like a pro tips video on my Twitter after Red Colony 1 came out, and there was some, at least in Japan, some people who shared it. I thought, you can do that. I didn't know. So it did help some people, but yeah. In the second game, I made sure that there was a tutorial showing that aspect of the gameplay. But it's still quite hard to tell that, like, I mean, the idea of you breaking lamps and crawling past the enemy is to save bullets. So instead of shooting 4 bullets at an enemy, you can aim one, but you have to use the silencer. So if you can break one lamp, you can crawl past him and save, 3 bullets, and also don't be attacked by the enemy. So that was sort of the.
I'm not gonna show too much of the writing. I'll skip
Mm.
past most of it that I can. Yeah, the second one. Oh, shit. The second one's got a whole different style to it, doesn't it? Like, it's not completely different style, but like playing this again, I can definitely tell like a difference between the two games.
Yeah, some of the assets are obviously reused, but that was also sort of one, to save time, but also because these colonies are right next to each other, so it would make sense that certain things were the same. But because I used Red Colony 1's scripts, like all the codes from Red Colony 1, I was able to spend more time on graphics in the second game.
Yeah,
Because that's that's the crazy thing when you make a game by yourself. Like, I can look at Red Colony and I know I can do better in terms of just graphics alone.
Yeah.
But you have to compromise, otherwise you will never get done. And this is something I learned from some of the indie devs I met in Tokyo. I would go to these dev nights once a month, and some of them just have been working on games for years and years and years and never released anything. And that's because they are sort of what is it called? Professionists? Like they want no.
Perfectionists.
Yes, that's one. That's the one. So, and that's a problem that a lot of creators are dealing with. Like, you sort of have to learn to compromise with yourself and your own talents. So the way I had to compromise was to, not spend too much time on the graphics alone, because then I would never get into the coding. And then when I reached the coding, I mean, it would have taken years and years to make a game if I want everything to be perfect. So I sort of try to balance everything out to make it like as good as possible. And then when the whole game was sort of playable from start to finish, I go back and polish things. So for example, Maria here, her appearance is quite different in the final game as it was like when I revealed it on Steam like earlier in 2020.
Well, I was
So
gonna say about this shot here. You more or less got a shot like this in the second game.
Okay.
I mean, it's not exactly the same. What I mean is just two vending machines, and you've also got two dustbins. And
Yeah.
I can clearly see that the second game has clearly had a visual upgrade, like a bit of a spit and polish, if you like, from this first game.
Yeah, and another.
Sorry, can I just say, if because obviously I can see that there's people in chat. If anyone wants to ask any questions about the development of the game, or anything interesting that you've got, that you just want to ask about anything to do with that sort of thing, or to do with the games, we're here. That's why we're here. Ask away. Feel free to ask away. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so one thing you might notice in Red Colony 1, it's like strict 2D, and in Red Colony 2, I made it sort of 2.5D. There is some depth in that, like for example, walls on the sides are in sort of fake 3D or whatever you want to say.
The one next to Mr. Big, is it Big? There's a wall
Uh,
just before him, I think it is, and you can see the fact that it goes in.
yeah, yeah, and also like in all the rooms, there is like the right and left walls are visible, and you can actually see the door you're walking through.
Yeah.
While in Red Colony 1, it's just flat surfaces. So just something like that actually takes a lot more time to design. But since I had the most scripts ready from Red Colony 1, I could actually spend time on that. And also these vending machines, I believe, are somewhat semi 3D in Red Colony 2 as well, and they also cast shadows to the left or right, depending on where they're standing. So yeah, I did have more time, spent more time on the graphics in the second game. So it's good that it's noticeable at least.
When I like this game has jiggly bits in it.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a lot of people either hated or didn't mind it.
Mm.
Were you ever tempted going on to the second game to lessen or reduce it? I'm trying to think of good words to use here.
No, the whole point was actually to so maybe I
this
have
is all
failed
different as well.
Sorry.
This is all different as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah.
To
So I can touch on this really quick though.
Yeah, go ahead.
For example, the 3D printing machine and like the wrist gear in the second game, everything is sort of upgraded, and the idea was to sort of add small improvements from the first game to the second game.
Yeah.
You know, of course, I would have loved to have all the small improvements from the second game in the first game, but you know that's a matter of time, and also I'm still learning how to do everything. So some things I just didn't exactly know how to do, and if I had to spend too much time trying to figure it out, I would never be done with the game. So I thought, well, because the second game is like in a communist, a capitalist colony, it sort of makes sense that things are just a little bit better. So I thought it sort of played into the story, but I don't think anyone would think about it like that. But for example, that 3D printer there, you can see in the second game it's much fancier and like high tech comparing to this one.
Didn't she like say something like we used to have these, but we sold them all to the Red Colony?
Yeah.
I thought that was quite clever and quite funny.
Yeah. So that was for Red Colony. People who played the first game, it was sort of first of all to trick them to think, oh, here's a saving station.
Yeah.
But then when you go there,
automatically I thought, hey, and then I didn't actually figure out the saving straight away, even though the thing actually has, when you actually look at it, a massive thing that says save on it.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Yeah,
because I made it completely over my head for quite a while. In fact, when I died for the first time and then had to go through the whole thing again, I almost kicked myself because I'm like, surely I'm doing something wrong here, and I wasn't reading the fact that the blatantly large writing.
Yeah, someone told me when it comes to game design, you can design a big ass red button that says press here, but someone won't see it anyway.
Yeah, that person's me, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know how much sleep I must have had, but yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous of me, but
that was that save system in the second game is slightly different from the first one, obviously, and there's also a tutorial on the first level in the second game saying great, use speed stick, or what is she using, whatever. I can't even remember my own game I just released. What's the save? It's a USB stick in the first game, and she's using like a card in the second game.
Yeah,
like that.
And then I like and it's at the bottom right hand side. I think you have to come down on the clicker. I like the fact that it's got the way it actually creates. I mean, obviously you've done a big visual upgrade on how the actual weapons and all are created,
Yeah.
and printed. Because obviously you just saw in this one, I've just done a gun, and it just almost literally just slides into gameplay and then pops into your inventory. Whereas the second one, it's a bit more visual, a bit more high-techy, you might say.
Yeah. 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 But the save thing in the second game too is only like you can only save in the red district, and that was a decision I made to make you as the player to feel a little bit more scared. Like maybe it's like when I play these games, I think they're too easy, but that's obviously because I made them and I played them a gazillion times.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I did think it was maybe too easy to have save points everywhere, and because it's 2D, the only scare like the horror element you can really do is like these jump scares. So I wanted to try to scare the player by sort of telling you there are no saves. You have to make it back to the red district to save. And I hope that the player will feel a little bit more stressed about that or scared, like they will be sort of more careful.
Hi there, Owls. How are you going? How did you find... could you rephrase that question, please?
Lot check. Loot check.
What is this game? Runic codes.
Oh.
Hello.
We just went through it, Runic codes. Jeez. Nintendo loot check. How did you find Nintendo loot? What does loot check mean?
I'm not quite sure. Never heard of it before.
Loot check is a Nintendo subsidiary that checks over games made by first and third party publishers to make sure they're compatible. I'm googling what it is.
Thank you, Runic codes. Does look good, doesn't it? I wonder if he means the process to get accepted for...
I see.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I don't even know what that meant.
Oh, right.
How
okay.
did you... okay, so how did you find, like, how did I enjoy it and all that? I see. Well, I think it's way too much shenanigans you have to go through to get a game out, but at the same time you have to I mean, that's also what separates console gaming from, for example, Steam. We talked before we started this stream that my first game I released, Knife Boy, on Steam, it just disappeared after 30 minutes in the sort of new release section. So I guess it's a good thing that it is harder to get your game on console, but and also because I have a publisher, they deal with all of that, which might sound like something like a good thing, but it was also a little bit frustrating for me because I don't have direct contact with Nintendo. It's everything through the publisher, and he sort of tell me what they told him. So, and also my publisher is now in Japan and I'm in Sweden, so it made it even more difficult with the time difference and all that. But overall, I think that the Nintendo people are really good at sort of testing the games. Here in Red Colony 1, there was a glitch that they pointed out, and I had to fix it. I sort of fixed it. It's still in the game, but it's quite difficult to trigger it. But they had actually been playing the game a lot to make sure that the game have some sort of standard. But you know, if you see the videos right after Red Colony 1 came out, you might think that there are no standards because there were some glitches, and one guy in Japan in particular had ran into pretty much every glitch there was. So he thought it was horrible. Like, how could Nintendo let this one pass? But you know, they do play the games and they try to break them too. But if it's not a game-breaking bug, they let it pass sometimes. But I think, yeah, Nintendo overall are good because they are. And another fantastic thing with Nintendo comparing to Sony and Microsoft, from what I've heard, again, I'm not pro at this, but Nintendo, they say if ESRB or zero rating in Japan, if they say it's okay, we are not going to ask the developers to censor anything.
Oh, right.
Nintendo and PlayStation, on the other hand, they might have second opinions on the ratings and ask you to censor it even more. So I respect Nintendo for that. Even though it's like a console for children, they seem to be most pro art, if you will.
I think that's because they want. You say a console for children, but I think they want more like adult orientated games. I think Nintendo really wants to come away from that. This is just a kids console type, you know, feeling that everyone has about their consoles, and I think they honestly want to come away from that and obviously get a bigger audience now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll also ask if I'm happy with my publisher's work in Japan. Yeah, of course, it's difficult for me to know what exactly they're doing, but based on, I mean, just the fact that I have a Famitsu magazine in my room here with Nandake. That was Japanese. I have a Famitsu magazine in my room with a review of Red Colony 1. I think that's like amazing because I grew up reading tons of magazines and there was always this sort of Famitsu from Japan, and this is before internet, so it was only like these rumors were based on some vague translations and all that stuff. So I just think it's so cool that my game is in one of these magazines, even though it's just like one picture and a short review. But that doesn't matter. It's in there, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And also, overall in Japan, Red Colony sold really well. Like the total sales, half of them are in Japan, and that's like, I mean, it's a very Japanese game, but my publisher is also mainly focusing on the Japanese market. So I'm happy with them. I think they did a good job. But again, I don't know all the ins and outs from what publishers do and all that. So
yeah. Just to answer, it's pretty cool playing the RC one. Show how much the second game has improved. We were literally just talking about that, weren't we, with the graphical like tweaks and updates that you've done with it. Because it really, I mean, even though you say you've used some of the same assets, you can definitely tell you've like taken a bit more time and made them more shiny, if you like. I'll remember this puzzle.
yeah. I don't even remember this one. It's like downstairs in.
Hello?
You go downstairs, but.
I'm trying to sort of like wander around and obviously not give too much away. It's trying to remember where every like thing is that you don't really want to show off. I mean, if you haven't played the first game, shame on you, and you should go and play it now. Well, actually, listen to this and then go and play it. Yeah.
So see, Runico says, I think they border the line. Sometimes their decisions are aimed towards a younger audience, but they do have a hardcore gamer audience now. Nintendo in general, yeah, I think so too.
You got the windmill in this one as well.
Yeah.
I had to. I'm not going to say what it was, but on the second game, it was actually quite interesting because I was playing in handheld. I had to get my phone out, do the windmill bit in the second one, which should make sense to you, but I'm not going to say what it was. Yeah, I had to use the zoom on my phone to do that bit because I couldn't quite see what I
Mm.
needed to see.
That's actually another interesting thing to bring up. Like, so I have a quite shitty, what we call this, my computer and my screen and everything is quite shit. So when I make these games, I can't quite tell how it's gonna look like on anyone else's TV. Like professional game developers, they will sort of allow you to change the darkness, but uh, I would say that's quite complicated, and how to do that, I don't know. But when I make the games, I just have to sort of rely on whatever screen I have, and then I hook the game up to like one more TV at home, and then the test kit. And these are like the only. And based on these screens, I have to sort of adjust the darkness of the game.
Yeah.
So, but even some people, they might have changed the darkness on their Switch in handheld mode, for example. You can obviously turn that up and down. And I did notice if you turn it down too much, some of the puzzles or some of the details are really hard to see.
Yeah. Um, Thank you for the nice comment, Mark Lee.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's out today, isn't it? This is literally the
Yeah,
the
I
launch
bought it
date.
today on my own Switch.
Yeah.
Not the test kit, but the dev kit, but my own one.
Is that because it feels different, or
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the bigger Switch because I have huge hands, and the small Switch give me like cramp after 5 minutes.
yeah?
I literally had to buy a Pro controller while testing Red Colony 2 because I just couldn't hold it anymore. Because
Right.
like before you send it into Nintendo, there's a lot of testing, both. But again and again, we're a very small team. I mean, it was basically me and Adam helped out, and I let my brother and my cousin play the game, and
There you
then the people at Shinyuden. So it's very few people playing the game, but I basically play it once or twice every day, start to finish. And the small test kit I have, like the Switch Lite, it's just so small that my hands were like
Shit.
in pain, so I had to buy a Pro controller. But now that I'm gonna play it next time, I want to play it on the bigger Switch, and I also
Yeah.
like to sort of buy it because it's I want to see how the user experience is like. That I'm buying the game like everyone else and then downloading it and launching it.
Yeah.
It's a bit different.
I guess it's the same with me because whenever I put a review out, it's like I can watch it back on my laptop, but obviously watching it back on when it's actually up on YouTube is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Do you ever get like sometimes I'll put something up and I'll be like, damn, I've left something out or something. Do you ever have sort of like any regrets or anything when?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little Twitter chat yesterday, and I mentioned that when I thought that releasing a game on a console would be same as on Steam, where you can keep replacing your build as much as you want until the game is released. So I sent like builds to Shinyuden, knowing that there were some glitches left that I was sort of. I mean, I had them fixed on the computer. They were totally fixed, but I just sent the build to Shinyuden and say, "Can you try if this one works?" Like to upload it, because when you upload it to some server somewhere, it will sort of, I don't know how things work on the back end, but it will sort of look through the file and see if everything is in check, like check everything, like something called metadata, and they will check the languages that they are correct and all that stuff. There's a bunch of things that who knows how it works in the back end, but this software checked these things. And when we sent the Red Colony 1 the first time, we got like 6 errors or something. and these are very extremely vague errors. Like I'm not quite sure what they mean, most of them. So I just try to change some settings in Unity, the software I'm using to make the game. And then I just asked Lewis, like, can you try this one? And then he's like, yeah, sure. And then it went through. And then I didn't think more of it. And then the Nintendo people played it and they say, yeah, this is fine. And then oh, that's great. And then like a week later, I told Lewis again, Lewis from Shinyodan, like, here's a new build. It will fix some of the bugs. And Lewis replied to me, what are you talking about? It's already approved. And I said, well, just replace it. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. So that was horrible. And I felt like, yeah, that was really shit.
Yeah.
But that's on me because I just didn't know better. I didn't know how it worked. So yeah, Runic Code says sorry.
No, go ahead.
Runic Code says, speaking of nice, when is Knife Boy coming to Switch? Well, we will see. Once the Red Colony Saga is out, I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna see if I can pull it off. Because that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, you've actually got me excited to want to play that.
It's also quite it's sort of like a Metroidvania game, but a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, it does actually look well, completely different to this game.
Yeah.
So with the third game, are you going to make further tweaks with the graphics and all, or are you happy with the way it looks now with the second game?
I think it will be very similar to the second game, but without spoiling anything, they're quite similar to the second game, but there is like I still want to tweak and improve stuff. My sort of goal as well, like a personal goal while making these games, is to improve each game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the player think it's improvements. They might think it's the opposite. But for me, it means that I can learn new things from each game. So, for example, the dialogue system in Red Colony 1 and 2 are completely different. And the dialogue system in Red Colony 2, I can put in voice actors and all that stuff. The dialogue system in Red Colony 1 is just impossible because this system is totally different. But so yeah, I sort of have personal goals too each game that I want to improve my own skills from game to game.
Yeah.
And then I hope the sort of goal is that there is one particular game I want to make one day. I hope I can start on it later this year or next year. But that game is just a little bit too complicated for me right now. But I do think that after Red Colony 3, if I can pull off a couple of the tweaks that I am gonna try to implement in Red Colony 3, if I can pull that off, I think I can make this other game that I really want to make. So that's the goal, to keep on adding things and maybe take some stuff away, but mainly to learn on a personal for me personally.
Can I just say to Runic Code, I'm trying not to give everything away in this game, just in case there's people that want to play it and haven't. So I'm just trying to like give just walk around and do random things, but not actually give everything away, if that makes sense.
You should die right before we end this chat, though. That's a good finish.
Yeah, okay. I can do that. I almost just I think I'm near to it now, actually. Yeah. Yeah, if you look on your screen, I'm when the stream catches up, I'm pretty darn close to it now. There we go. So yeah, any time you want me to die, I can do that easily. I don't think I can go out that door now. So when am I allowed to ask, when do you think we'll be seeing the third third game?
I'm quite optimistic time-wise, because in my head I'm still a single man without a wife and son, which means that I can work shitloads. But I do have a wife and son now, so I can't work as much as I used to. However, I hope I'm gonna try really hard to get it out by Halloween, but I do think that's a bit too soon. I don't
Right.
think we'll be able to hit that date based on the things I want to put in the third game.
Damn it.
But at least that's what I'm gonna try.
Have it out by.
And that's
I was gonna say try for Christmas. That'll be an ironic release.
yes, that's true.
Like the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, maybe Christmas would work too.
Yeah. Or just
but
before it, rather. You know.
hmm,
I mean, I can understand
but yeah,
Halloween. That would be pretty cool.
I do think that there are a lot of big sales around Christmas, though, and I think most publishers want to stay out of that because
Yeah,
then
but
the heavily discounted games get a lot of
yeah.
attention. But you know,
And
Nintendo
then you
Store
got
have
Black
changed.
Friday and all, haven't you, as well?
Sorry.
And then you got Black Friday and all as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's obviously great for us gamers, but for the publisher, it's not
Yeah.
as fun.
I suppose it's
And
something
then
I don't think about too much, obviously.
yeah, no, man, me too. Like I never think about these things, but you know, I learn a little bit from my publishers, and they think that's something we have to keep in mind, that we don't want to have it out when it's a big sale. But I do think it's also big sales around Halloween. But I still think that this would be a perfect game for Halloween, like horror,
I
B
think
movie, horror.
Yeah, I think there's sales, but there's also people do release like horror films around that time. It's kind of a traditional thing, isn't it? And
yeah,
I think it'll be fitting for it.
yeah. But I remember on the Switch store, you used to be able to discount your games like tons, like 100% almost, and that sort of ruined it for like the sort of top picks section. It was just a bunch of $1 games.
Sorry about that. My
So a
daughter
lot
just
of
walked in and out.
yeah, but a lot of developers or publishers don't want to release a game when these things happens, because then your chance of ending up there is very small unless you discount your game 90% or something. But if you're a publisher and you have spent all the money on PR and publishing and all that stuff, that's not good for business.
Yeah, it's crazy some of the deals that have come. I mean, I bought a game the other week for 5p. I think it was 5p. I didn't even know what the game was, but I bought it because I mean, I think the Nintendo Switch shop is starting to get a bit like Steam. Very. I mean, there's games on my Switch that I bought at a discount that I probably never play now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
like on my Steam account, I have like billions of games that I will probably never play.
Yeah, that's why you should follow this guy. I don't know, Adam. Maybe you know him or not, but he play all his backlog games. Those particular games that he bought dirt cheap and never actually picked up and play. So now he's doing this thing where he's actually going back and playing these things, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if Runic Codes knows who Adam is. But yeah, maybe you do.
We wait in a bated breath.
But yeah, it's it is interesting that the whole sales thing, like how you can sort of manipulate the market in a way and get a lot of publicity by making your game super cheap.
Yeah, I've seen #1 games in the charts that are like you would never think there would be #1, and then it's and then you look and it's because they've just had like their game out and they've sold it for 50p or something for a week, and then it's there, and obviously it's come out of discount and people will buy it because it's like #1 in the charts. It's like
Mm.
Weird.
And
Um,
yeah, it's sort of like Adam and I talk a lot about this before, but it is a, what do you call it, double-edged
yeah,
sword-ish. I
double-edged
mean,
sword. Yeah,
these if you discount your game that much, surely that means that maybe it just doesn't sell anymore, so you have nothing to lose, which
mm,
makes sense. Um, to just discount it tons and then just try to squeeze out whatever is left. And also, you get publicity for it if it ends up on the charts, and maybe people pick it up and like it and play the second game if you're releasing a sequel.
yeah,
But then now that I have a publisher and hear his sort of story, it makes me think, now I sort of feel sorry for them because a lot of people want to stay out of sales periods, or they get sort of what do you say? They get damaged by heavily discounted games because
mm,
their own games can't compete. And if you just release a game, I guess it's you wanna you spent maybe a lot of money and time making it, so you probably want to make that back. But it's difficult if
yeah.
everything
I
is
think I have heard of
IP.
or read about someone that actually did that,
Mm.
and it damaged their release because they released it whilst like there was some really deep discounts.
Yeah.
Basically, it ruined their traction, so they never really got well any traction, and it kind of like slowed down the progression of their game sales.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
it's but
okay, sorry. I was gonna say, I was gonna actually ask a couple of questions before
mm.
we round it up, and also if anyone's got any more questions, and feel free to ask them. Um,
I,
this video should go live tomorrow, so I mean, if anyone has any questions after the it's published, then if you want to ask, I'm sure you'll answer them in chat as well. Um,
mm.
you know, I was going to just ask, are there any things that um, you would change about either of the games?
Hmm.
That you're not happy about or with or
Well, yeah, there are some smaller things, but it's not like I don't know if I would want to change them. It's more like, did I wish that I was better at making games so I could actually make it work the way I wanted to. But for example, the way she ducks is she sort of sinks through the floor. That's something I tried to fix and never managed to.
hmm
Uh, so that's one thing. There's another thing. This whole like the sort of Resident Evil cutscenes that takes place when you walk through doors and all that stuff. That was not intended in the beginning. But the way I wanted it to work, I just couldn't pull it off, so I had to make these sort of fake cutscenes. But that
weirdly enough, I
resulted,
actually like them.
yeah, that's I realized once I did them that this is actually like a nice callback to Resident Evil games.
Well, that's yeah, literally just came into my head. That's what you were actually going for, and why you
Yeah,
did
but
them, and it
that
worked
was
really
like
well.
yeah, but that was not my intention. It wasn't until I made them that I thought like, oh, you know what? This is like a Resident Evil
Yeah,
when you walk through doors and all that. So I like the fact that I couldn't pull off the original idea.
yeah.
Uh, what else? Something I'm very disappointed with. Um,
How about what's your like crowning achievement? What's your favorite thing that you're most proud of within the two games?
uh, Porting them to Switch was a hell of a accomplishment for me, but
Yeah,
that's has nothing to do with the games themselves, I guess. Uh, and just pulling the whole thing off is the crown achievement. But if
hmm
I think about the games in particular, like the things that the player can experience, um, the clothes ripping off is something I was very proud of because this is something I wanted to be in Knife Boy, but I never figured out how to make it work. And it works in Red Colony, and it also happens instantaneously, so that's pretty cool, I think. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, it was very unique.
Mm,
Yeah, as you can see, she looks different now to when she actually started.
yeah, and I sort of liked the like I mentioned somewhere that in most horror games or zombie games, the main protagonist is always immune to zombies. But she isn't. So when you die, she will say in Japanese though, she says like, "Oh shit, I got bitten," and then she, yeah, you know how she ends herself
Hmm.
because she sort of panic and don't want to turn the zombie. But so the whole thing that the zombies are actually not biting her at all, they just pulling her clothes. I thought that was quite fitting to the whole game. Uh,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how that came together was I was quite happy about that too because the original idea was not to have this sort of etchiness to it. That sort of happened as I started brainstorming ideas, and when everything came together, I'm like, oh, this is
Want
sort
to
of
see
makes
the
sense.
death scene now? Do you want me to, as we're talking about it?
Sorry.
Do you want me to show the death scene now? If we're talking about it,
Yeah, sure.
I'm
Can you
right next to it.
lure him out on the open so we don't hide her under the table?
All right. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Good point. There we go. Okay. We're almost there. Got more
Mm.
life than I thought in her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely see like there's yeah.
I'm sort of surprised this passed. Like, I thought it wouldn't pass how nude she is now.
But you don't. Yeah, I mean you don't see anything, do you?
Mm. Now, yeah, there are rules about that. I don't think you're allowed to show nipples, for example.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can see any nipples, can you?
No, I censored them out.
Little square nipples censored.
Yeah. But I think the original, this image we see here, the original one, I think you can actually see a nipple under the bra, but yeah, it was taken out. So.
Right. This is this next screen. Not that screen. This screen. That picture
Mm.
um
Mm.
is actually pretty cool, and it moves very subtly,
Mm.
doesn't it? I mean, you can
Um,
like if you just looked at the picture and then looked away, you may actually miss the fact that it has got movement in, but um,
mm.
in a non like um, pervy way, it's actually quite a cool picture.
Mm.
It'd probably make a good tattoo actually.
Yeah. I think it's I'm also surprised this passed, like that this was allowed. But actually on the eShops it's not allowed. But you know, it's a adult game, this one, so it makes sense that it was allowed. But
Yeah, well,
um
there's nothing on here, is there? I mean,
mm,
obviously she's wearing clothes in all the bits that she needs to be wearing clothes.
mm. It's just like the hand coming in under the skirt and the one grabbing her breast. But you know, the way I was thinking about it, these are zombies and they're behind the fence trying to take her. So a zombie wouldn't think where he lay a hand on a human being. He wouldn't think that it would be inappropriate or anything like that. And that was sort of the how I justify this quite over the top
Yeah,
um, start
yeah, I can
menu.
definitely, yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. It's
But
weird that you have to think about things like that, though, isn't it?
yeah,
If
but
it's a load of
that's
zombies, it's weird the fact that you have to take your head into that direction. You
mm,
know, because we are talking
but,
about something completely fantasy and everything, and they are dead and all this lot.
mm. But that's fun when like when I started developing this game, I was only thinking about Steam, and Steam is very laid back about everything, and that's why
Yeah, I've
I felt like I felt like I didn't have to censor myself, and then you can sort of allow yourself to do whatever. And I think it's super important when you make games that you shouldn't have to think about these things. You should just do what you want to do. And then when it's done, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, or Steam, they can have their say. But as long as you develop the game, I think you shouldn't think about censoring yourself or thinking that certain things are inappropriate or anything like that. Just sort of do what you want to do. That's what art is all about. And
yeah,
then if you want to put these art pieces or Red Colony, for example, on someone else's platform, well, then you have to play by their rules.
yeah,
So I had that in mind when um, the opposite. I was not thinking about that I would one day have to censor my stuff. I just
mm,
made it the way I wanted, and I'm just sort of surprised at some things that were allowed, and yeah. So, but this scene, I think it's quite striking. A
I
lot of
think I think it's quite interesting, and she looks so calm with the gun
mm,
and her
mm,
hand. I mean, I kind of like imagine her. This is happening, and then all of a sudden, she is literally just gonna like break away, flick her hair back, and then just
mm,
do some badass shooting. I don't know
mm,
whether that's your image of what happens.
mm. I when I show this to Famitsu, for example, in Japan, they were also I don't know if shocked is the right word, but sort of taken back a little bit, like, whoa, what's going on here? And I think when you manage to make that sort of impression, then
Mm.
that's a cool thing,
I think
whatever or
the
not
more
it's
you actually look
good.
at
But
it, the more of a calming picture it actually is. It's if you know what I mean.
yeah. Mm.
Um, so I think it was actually quite a good session. I think if you want, we can round it up at that.
Sure thing.
Um,
Yeah, it's good fun talking about. I absolutely love talking about the games I create. It's fun, and when
yeah.
uh,
Well, hopefully we
but
can.
mm,
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, hopefully, when you do the third game,
Mm,
we can do this again,
yeah.
and maybe see sort of like the differences between all three games. There is
Mm,
one question I want to ask before we actually wrap the whole thing up.
yeah.
When you've done a third game, do you
Mm,
intend on? Um, Now I've seen this done two different ways. Releasing like a definitive version where you release all three games at the same time in one package.
um, I think about that a lot, but then I'm thinking, how do I do that? Like, does that mean that it would be like a downloadable game with all three games with
Right, I've
uh,
seen it in two ways where um, they have the single game still up on the App Store, and then
hmm.
they have literally bundled all three into one like package.
So it comes down as three separate games,
Um,
or is it
it
like the Mario collection when you launch the game and then there's a menu where you pick the game?
No, they kind of like released all three together as a package, and
Ah, I
then
see.
yeah, and then they did it as chapters. So within the actual package, they
Hmm.
had chapters. So you had chapter one, two, three, and you just pick which chapter you want. But
Ah, I see.
they still had um, the three games, the original three games still on the App Store.
Hmm.
And then the other way I've seen it being done, where they actually removed the original. I think it was two games, as it were.
Hmm.
In that case, they removed the two games completely from the App Store, or
Hmm.
e-store, and then up and then instead of that they reintroduced it as one package, as in both games both together.
Ah. Yeah, when I thought about this like long time ago, because if you noticed the Red Colony 2, the start menu is flipped. It's on the right side, the main character,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I was thinking it would be cool to make a game with all in one, and imagine that you enter this start scene like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then you press
Right.
L1 and L2 or LB, whatever they're called,
Yeah.
and then you sort of flip between the games. So if it was Red Colony 1 and 2 now, and you pressed R, it will just like sort of switch over to the right side would be Nicole, and then
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
And then the third
Uh,
one, you would flip one more, and it would move
so the
that
third
one
one
to
is
the left.
probably gonna, yeah, I think the third one is gonna be in the middle. So so I was thinking first that the first one on the left side, the second one in the middle, and the third one on the right side. But of course, this is just like when I was imagining things, and the first game wasn't even out yet. So
Uh-huh.
I wasn't even sure if I would ever be able to make 3 games.
Yeah.
So by the time the first one was out, I had already started on the second one, and I had just sort of forgotten about that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But but I still had a chance to change that. But then I start thinking about, I don't even know if I can release a game with all three in one. I think it's actually a lot of complicated coding that is necessary for that.
All
I
right.
can imagine that the easiest way would be just to, and again, I don't know how it works on the eShop, for example, but I guess the easiest way would be that you buy like a bundle, and then you hit download, and it's downloading 3 separate games.
And then you just
That's
choose. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you install 3 games. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's allowed, and I don't know if it's possible. But that way, I can imagine that I would actually be able to pull it off from a programming point of view.
Yeah.
Because if I would have to make a menu where you pick the game you want to play, that in of itself is quite complicated. And I'm
Mm.
also worried that the loading and saving script in these games, which are all the same, I'm using the same script in every game.
Uh-huh.
I would be worried that these will interfere with each other, because they are sending the saved and load data to some sort of folder inside the Switch system.
Yeah.
And the load and save script is actually quite sensitive. If you pick up 2 items with the exact same name, it will break the whole save and load system. Again, I'm a noob at this, so that's why, like, when I make these games, I make sure that every item has a unique name. But then I would have to sort of make sure that they are unique throughout 3 different games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't know if I can pull it off. But it would be awesome though. That would be really cool
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
release
Yeah.
a
Definitely would.
bundle. But at this point, it's just wishful thinking. It really depends on how complicated it is.
Mm.
But for now, it's just I focus on Red Colony 3, and then
Yeah.
we
Of
will
course.
see what happens.
And you're gonna start that
So yeah,
soon.
yep. I have the story is actually sort of done already,
Mm-hmm.
and I already started on it. But it's a lot of work right before releasing a game, and a lot of the like owls and towels as before the when you release a game, if it's easy or not. But it's actually tons of work. So I haven't had much time to work on Red Colony 3 yet, but
Yeah.
I think maybe from next week it will clear up a little bit, then I can sort of go all in, I hope.
Mm. Okay. So
Yeah.
if anyone wants to watch the reviews of either the games, I'll link them down below. I should have done that to start with actually, but I'll link them down below. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we?
Well, to all of you who play the game, and you too, thank you so much. It's thanks to all of you who play the games that I can continue making them, and I absolutely love making these games. I have such a joy making them. I'm literally laughing sometimes when I come up with stupid things. And being a solo developer, there's sort of no one to tell me, no, you can't do that, or no, this is not good. So
Yeah.
I can really be creative and do whatever I want. And that's such a privileged position to be in as a creator, I think.
Mm.
So, and that's thanks to all the support from everyone who plays the games. So thank you guys a lot. Tons of thanks.
And thank you for joining us for this very special edition. And thanks for letting me do this with you.
Yeah, no worries. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do it again when the third chapter comes out. In
Yeah.
how long is it taking you? 6 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the next one will be faster. But again, I tend to be a bit optimistic about time. But I do think it's going to be faster,
Yeah.
just because. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll end it there. And thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a pleasure having you come on and speak on my channel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I never know how to end these things. So thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, bye and bye.
Bye.